So last week we had two massive events in the world. One was the Dutch elections, where the right wing, not far right wing, Geert Wilders won the Dutch elections, but he cannot form a government yet. And the other is in Ireland, where an Algerian immigrant went and stabbed 3 children and 2 adults, causing riots in all of Dublin to get them out, to stop immigration. So let's go through it, what happened, and why people are getting it wrong with what they think the outcomes are going to be. So everyone says, great, this is fantastic, finally people, realizing, what's going on. People have realized this for a very long time. The problem is they cannot fight back. They cannot be heard. People's message doesn't get through, and they cannot do anything about it. And the reason that is that people have been gaslighted into the many values or amazing things the West has, right? So let's go through with them. The first one is freedom of speech, right? You can say what you want. You can say, get them out, right? In Dublin, get them out, right? Freedom of speech, freedom to peacefully protest. That is what they say. Yeah, what happened in Canada during COVID? Well, what happened there, clearly, Canadian truckers peacefully protest and immediately were slammed with hate speech laws. Hate speech being a way to curb freedom of speech. That's the point of it. It's just, you've got free speech, but not if you do something that we define as hate speech. And we can define you being against a medical treatment as hate speech, right? And racists, they were called racist by Trudeau, remember. And they had their bank accounts frozen, they were arrested, they were moved away, their trucks were, or they were impounded and towed away. Yeah, that's your freedom of speech, guys. There is no freedom of speech in the West at all. I dare anyone to say online something against LGBT, you will get a knock at the door from the police, you will probably get fired, and yeah, your life will be ruined. So you have zero freedom of speech. Now compare that to Russia, where if you said the same thing, no one would care. Right? You could say whatever you want about LGBT, they don't care. The only thing in Russia, China, Saudi Arabia, you can't talk about the regime, right? If you do, you will be in jail and stuffed in a gulag. But pretty much all other free speech, as well as freedom of religion, maybe not in China or Saudi Arabia, but in Russia, for instance, you have got freedom of religion. Just don't talk about Putin, and you're pretty much fine to go away and say whatever you want. In the West, if you misgender somebody, it's about to happen. The Labour leader in the UK has already said he will make that a criminal offence. A guy took a video of too many Palestinian flags, too many Palestinian flags on his road in Tower Hamlets in London, and he was arrested. Yes, he was arrested, inciting racial violence. Again, they can use whatever stupid laws they want. There is no freedom of speech, and you know it, and I know it, that we cannot say anything, and that is the way it is. You cannot say what you want. You cannot peacefully protest. Again, during the pandemic, all across the world, they tried it. They were smashed down by police, beating them up. But if you want to say, from the river to the sea, and nasty chants like that, 300,000 people, go ahead. If you want to say BLM protests, you go ahead. But anything right wing, you're in trouble. So that's the first one. Let's get that out. Second one is democracy, the illusion of democracy. Democracy means we can go and vote in whoever we vote in. They make the laws, and they basically can decide, and we can vote them out. Now, most of the West has a uniparty system, so you only have 2 parties like the UK and USA. There's only 2 parties, very hard to get in. In the UK, the system is built that there's no other political parties can challenge those 2. And in the US, the funding and the money that you need makes it impossible. The barriers to entry are so high, even billionaire Ross Perot in the 90s couldn't break the stranglehold of those 2 parties. It is too high. And so therefore you have a uniparty system. It's exactly the same party. They pretend they're doing this, but they're all best mates, and they all have dinner parties together, and they will believe in the same thing. So in those countries, there is no democracy whatsoever. In the UK, everyone wants to stop immigration, yet neither the Conservatives, currently in power for 13 years and been voted on an anti-immigration platform, has actually increased immigration significantly, increased by miles, like triple more than Labour, which is the left. Triple more immigrants have come in the last 3 years than ever the left ever did, and they have no plan to stop it. They could stop it today. You know, it's changed. It's not illegal immigration; it's legal migration. They could stop it today. They don't want to. They have no plans to do it because they don't care. It's a uniparty system. You can't vote for anyone else. There is no democracy. It's the right hand or the left hand. In the end, you're voting the same person. Right hand or left hand. So in those fake democracies, we're out. Now let's talk about Holland. Holland just voted in Geert Wilders' right wing. His chance of forming a government is zero. All the globalists, all the people really in charge will gather around, and you will have a coalition of far left with far right, with, Greens and oil people, and everyone will get together to prevent him from forming a government. That is exactly what will happen. He has zero chance of forming a government. That is what happens. Now, if he was to, let's say he gets past that. So in Israel, for instance, they got past that. They had a proper right-wing coalition and they actually started trying to make changes. Well, then you have the Supreme Court dictatorship in control of these countries. So the Supreme Court overrides Parliament. How can you call that a democracy? Oh, it's checks and balances. I don't care what you call it. That is not democracy. If something overrides the democratically elected body, that is not a democracy. I don't care what you say. If I want to vote in Hitler and he wants to pursue a racist policy, that is the electorate's imperative to do that. That is a democracy. You cannot come and tell me that it's a democracy because you've got a Supreme Court that can overrule that. No, it's not. It's not. It's a fake democracy. It's a limited. It's basically tyranny. It's you do what we want, or that you vote the right way, or you're not. Even if you vote the right way, your policies can never come to fruition. That's what happened in Israel, where they tried to reform the Supreme Court to reduce its power. No chance. Not going to happen. And in the UK, which actually did have a real kind of democracy, obviously the uniparty system, but let's say you voted in you vote in that party wins in Parliament. The House of Lords, which is the above body, basically can be overruled by the democratically elected Houses of Parliament, and there was no one above it, and so therefore a Conservative government or whatever government could implement a crazy policy, and it would become law until Tony Blair created the Supreme Court. And so what we also had this last week was the Rwanda policy was overruled in the UK. They wanted to deport illegal immigrants and process them in Rwanda. That was approved. The illegal Supreme Court overrode the democratically elected body and said, no, you cannot. No, you cannot. Right? And that's with the UK having left the EU and therefore not being bound by the EU. You can't blame the EU anymore. That was the UK Supreme Court invented less than 20 years ago, and made by Blair to ensure that there could never be any democracy in the UK. Like, it's the stopgap measure, it's the guaranteed, whatever happens, we will stay in charge. And so then you have that one. Now, the third thing is national sovereignty. So national sovereignty is a country decides, who it is, and it's got closed borders essentially, right? It doesn't. It allows in certain limited immigration. Well, we have all over the West open immigration. It's so open, as I just told you. The UK, the last 3 years, 1.2 million, mainly Muslim origin, poor fighting age males coming in and then bringing their families later. That is what's happening in the UK, in America, clear open door policy in the South, in Canada. Everywhere you look, it's to destroy the national integrity of that nation. So we have no free speech, we have no democracy, we have no national sovereignty because everyone can come in whenever they want, claim whatever they want, take benefits whenever they want, and destroy from the inside that country, as we've seen in the UK, where basically it's been taken over by these Islamists on Armistice Day. They don't care. On Armistice Day, Remembrance Day, you had 300,000 Islamist race-baiting murderers, terror supporters, and a few thousand actual British people caring that soldiers lost their life. That's basically it. There's 300,000 people who really care, and a few thousand that could be bothered to get out of their armchair. That is when you have no national sovereignty left. So when you have all those three taken away, and the fourth one, is obviously national ability to make laws. So that is also being usurped by global bodies that no one ever voted for. So the WHO can now say when there's a pandemic, and everyone has to comply by it. Everyone in the UK also loves going, oh, the EU said this, we can't do anything, our hands are tied, the EU has said we have to do it. Again, the EU is a globalist body, not voted by, well, it is supposedly voted, but it's really not. The president has decided from the inside, and everything goes by a core policy, and everyone just has to rubber stamp it, right? That's the way it goes. So globalist bodies who decide on everything, and it doesn't matter what you do, it's already been decided at a global levels. For instance, we had the pandemic global, everyone agreed. Vaccine global, everyone agreed. No dissension, no voices, nothing is allowed. The climate change scam, everyone has to go along with it. Everyone has to agree to the Paris agreement, whatever it is, 2030, 2035, whatever you want. Everyone has to comply. And then we're going to have CBDC, central bank digital currency, guaranteed coming in, and that's it. So there is no nation. Everything's being decided on a global level, and there is you can look left and you look right, and you're like, oh, but no one's actually doing anything different, so it must be okay. That's called gaslighting, right? That's how gaslighting works. You make yourself, you think you're crazy. They make you think you're the crazy one when you're not crazy. They just gaslight you. That is the point of it. So I hope you understand that the Geert Wilders, no chance of him coming in. If he does, even then, he'll be overridden by the Supreme Court there and the European Court of Human Rights for sure. And with Dublin, their parliament doubled down. They called these people far-right extremists when they were just normal people being upset that the constant flow of migrants has stabbed children and has destroyed their housing. The youth are penniless because of the housing crisis. That's what they're annoyed about. No one will ever make any differences. It doesn't matter who you vote. It doesn't matter what you say. Nothing will get done. And I'm sorry, guys, I don't see any hope at all, anywhere on the horizon. Maybe Trump in America, but I think, again, you will see either will be rigged again, like they did last time, or they just won't allow him to run, basically. So that's it.